The sun was still high when I pulled into the long gravel driveway, dust kicking up behind the tires like a warning I tried not to read into. Era leaned forward from the passenger seat, eyes wide with the same cautious optimism I was trying to hold on to. She had begged to wear the yellow sundress she'd saved for all summer, the one that made her spin in front of the mirror with a look on her face that I hadn't seen in a while, unfiltered joy. It gave me hope. Maybe this time would be different. We stepped out into the heavy summer air, the distant sound of laughter and a grill crackling somewhere behind the house. The backyard was dotted with folding chairs and picnic tables, cheap balloons tied lazily to fence posts. It all looked so normal, the kind of normal I used to think we could have. Jenna spotted us first. Her face stretched into a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She walked over, arms open wide like we were long-lost friends instead of estranged sisters. "You made it," she said, pulling me into a brief hug before stepping back to look at Era. "Oh wow, look at you. That dress is bright." "It's my favorite," Era said, her voice steady. I squeezed her hand. She squeezed back. "Let's get you both something to eat," Jenna said, already turning toward the patio. I caught Mom watching from the folding chair near the garden, her sunglasses pushed up like a crown. She raised her cup slightly and smiled. That smile, tight-lipped and too polite, was her signature move. Approval coded in disapproval. I knew it too well. Rick was manning the grill, his head down like always. He gave a small nod when I said hi, barely meeting my eyes. I didn't blame him. He'd learned early how to survive in Jenna's orbit, quiet obedience. As we moved deeper into the backyard, the conversation around us didn't stop, but it shifted. I could feel it, like the air changed when we stepped through it. I heard whispers under breath and saw glances that lasted too long. I wasn't imagining it. I never was. We sat near the edge of the patio, plates in hand, Era carefully arranging her corn and potato salad like it was a ritual. I kept my focus on her, on the way her eyes lit up at a joke from a cousin across the table. I wanted this to be good for her. I wanted it to be safe. But under all the laughter and clinking of glasses, the same old currents pulled at my ankles. I told myself not to drown in them. Not yet. Jenna appeared again just as Era was finishing her lemonade, her footsteps crisp against the patio stones. Her eyes scanned us, pausing on Era with a smile that flickered too quickly. "Well, don't you look cheerful," she said, eyebrows raised just slightly. "That dress is certainly bright. Makes you easy to spot." Era blinked, confused for half a second before nodding, her smile faltering only a little. I knew that look. The way her face held steady even when something stung.
"She'd learned that from me."
Jenna clapped her hands once. Too loud. "Hey, sweetie, since you're already up and looking adorable, could you help with something? Drinks are inside on the counter. Just grab the tray and start passing them out. Everyone's probably getting thirsty." Era glanced at me. I could see the hesitation in her shoulders. Sure," she said. I started to speak, but Jenna cut in, already stepping away. "Thanks, Han, knew you'd be helpful." And just like that, she disappeared into the crowd, leaving Era standing awkwardly, unsure of where to begin. She looked back at me once more before heading inside, small sandals pressing lightly over the patio stones. I forced a smile, even as something sharp twisted in my chest. The tray was too big for her hands. I watched from a distance as she carefully balanced it, the drinks clinking against each other with every cautious step she took. She moved from chair to chair, offering cups with a quiet, "Would you like one?" and a hopeful grin. Most people barely looked at her, just reached for what they wanted, like she was part of the furniture. I folded my hands in my lap, tightening them until my knuckles ached. I kept the smile on my face, nodding to someone across the yard like everything was fine. But inside, I was on fire. This wasn't about drinks. This was Jenna's way, wrapping control in kindness, wrapping judgment in favor, making sure everyone saw where we stood. Era, in her best dress, carrying drinks like she was staff at a party she didn't ask to attend. I caught Mom's eye across the yard again. She said nothing, just sipped her wine slowly and turned back to her magazine, as if silence were diplomacy. When Era returned, empty tray in hand, I opened my arms and she sank into them without a word. I kissed the top of her head and held her a little tighter than necessary. We both knew what had just happened, but only one of us still believed it might not happen again. The sun had started to dip, casting long shadows across the lawn. People gathered around the picnic tables, drinks in hand, voices louder now, loosened by the heat and the wine. Era sat beside me, quiet but composed, her plate barely touched. Her dress still bright, still beautiful, even as the day wore her down. Jenna was in the center of it all, holding court like she always did. Her laugh cut through the air, sharp and controlled. And then her eyes landed on Era again. "I mean, seriously," she said, loud enough for the whole group to hear. "Who lets sunshine out of the house today?" A few people chuckled. One of the cousins actually snorted. "It's like she's trying to blind us," Jenna added, shaking her head with a dramatic sigh. What was the inspiration? Lemonade stand chic. Laughter bubbled up around the table, casual, careless. Just enough to sting without anyone having to feel guilty. Era didn't move. She didn't cry. She didn't even look away. But her fingers curled into the hem of her dress, tugging it under the table. Her back stayed straight, but her eyes, those gave her away. Dimming, slowly, like someone turning down the volume of her light. I felt my body tense, my legs already starting to rise before I even realized it. But before I could fully stand, my mother reached out with a slow, tired motion and placed her hand lightly on my arm. "Let it go," she said, barely above a whisper. "She's just joking. Don't make a scene." I stared at her. Her face didn't even flinch. Just that calm, steady mask she wore whenever real things happened. Era sat frozen beside me. I wanted to scoop her up and run. I wanted to scream at Jenna, knock the wine out of her hand, drag every laugh out of the air until the whole yard went silent. But I didn't move. I stayed still, like I'd learned to, like I'd been taught. And that made it worse. All I could do was smile, tight and forced, and reach for my daughter's hand under the table. She let me take it, but she didn't look at me. That was the moment it hit me. I had brought her here. I had walked her right into it, hoping this time would be different, knowing deep down it never was. The regret settled deep in my chest, thick and unmoving. I had wanted her to belong, but I had forgotten what it cost to try. The laughter still lingered in the air like smoke when the deep rumble of tires on gravel broke through it. Heads turned. Conversation slowed. A black SUV, sleek and silent, rolled up the driveway like it had no intention of stopping for anyone. It didn't belong here. Everything about it, polished, dark, commanding, clashed with the sagging lawn chairs and plastic cutlery. The engine cut off. A beat of silence followed. Then the door opened. A woman stepped out. She was tall and composed, wearing a tailored suit like it had been sewn directly onto her. Her heels clicked with precision as she moved across the grass, her dark hair pulled back in a way that made you want to stand straighter. She didn't glance around or nod politely. She didn't acknowledge the way everyone stared. She walked with purpose, focused, direct, untouchable. She walked straight to Era. The crowd shifted, puzzled. Jenna's voice faltered mid-sentence. Mom lowered her glass. I looked at Era, whose eyes had gone wide. She stood slowly, almost on instinct, as the woman approached. And then, to everyone's complete confusion, the woman knelt in front of her. "Princess," she said, her voice soft but clear. "Are you ready for your surprise?" Era blinked. "Me?" The woman smiled, warm and sure. "Of course you." I could barely breathe. My mind scrambled for meaning. Who was she? Why was she here? How did she know Era? But my mouth wouldn't move. All I could do was watch. Era nodded slowly, a bit dazed, her hand still tangled in the hem of her dress. Amelia Blackwell, because I'd recognized that name a moment later when someone hissed it under their breath, rose to her full height and extended her hand. Not to me, not to anyone else, just my daughter. And Era, sweet and stunned, reached for it. The yard was silent now. Jenna stared, mouth open. Rick had stopped flipping burgers. Even the cousins who'd laughed a moment ago now watched like they weren't sure what they were supposed to do with their faces. I wanted to ask what was going on. I wanted to step forward, but something told me not to. Something told me this moment wasn't mine. Amelia turned slightly, one arm still gently resting on Era's shoulder, and addressed the crowd, though her gaze hardly lingered on anyone else. "I'm Amelia Blackwell," she said with a calm, practiced authority. "I run the Blackwell Rising Creators Program. Some of you may have heard of us." No one responded. She went on unfazed. "A few months ago, students at West Pine Middle were encouraged to submit creative work as part of our youth outreach. Era submitted several original fashion sketches. They were bold, imaginative, and unlike anything we'd seen." I felt my heart catch in my throat. I looked at Era, who was blinking rapidly, her lips parted in quiet disbelief. "We tried contacting her through the school," Amelia continued, "but when I heard she might be here today, I decided to come myself." Amelia reached into her bag and pulled out a crisp envelope, which she placed gently in Era's hands. "You've been selected for our summer program," she said. "It's a fully funded scholarship. Lodging, materials, mentoring. Everything's taken care of. You'd be working alongside top designers from around the country." Silence. Not a sound came from the backyard for a long second. Then a nervous laugh from someone in the back. A clink of ice in a glass. Jenna stepped forward, smiling too widely. "Oh wow, that's unexpected," she said, her voice teetering between admiration and confusion. "I didn't even know Era liked that kind of thing." "She never mentioned it." "She didn't have to," I said quietly, still stunned. "She's been doing it on her own." "Well," Mom said, standing slowly, "that's nice, isn't it? A little art camp for the summer. Sounds cute." Amelia raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Era looked down at the envelope, her fingers brushing the edge like it might disappear. "It's not a camp," Amelia said, correcting her gently. "It's a competitive training program. We had over 2,000 applicants. Era's was one of the top 10 portfolios selected." That shut everyone up again. One of the cousins muttered, "Guess yellow is her color." I turned to Era. She was glowing, but cautiously, like she didn't quite trust the light yet. I reached for her hand and held it tightly. "You did this," I whispered. "You earned this." She nodded slowly, still stunned. In that moment, I didn't care about the stares or the murmurs. I didn't care about Jenna's tight smile or Mom's strained voice. All I saw was my daughter, standing tall in her bright yellow dress, and the world finally turning to look at her the way she deserved. Jenna stepped forward again, the same stiff smile stretched across her face. Her eyes flicked from Era to Amelia, then back to the envelope like it was something suspicious. "Well, I mean, that's sweet and all," she said with a light laugh. "But let's be honest, those kinds of programs are more about making kids feel special than anything serious. Era's creative, sure, but this sounds a bit exaggerated, doesn't it?" The words hung there, sharp and ugly beneath their soft delivery. I felt it build in me like a rising wave, years of swallowing things, of letting people like Jenna make their little cuts and moving on like it didn't bleed. But this time, they hadn't aimed at me. They'd aimed at her. I stepped forward. "No," I said calmly. "It's not exaggerated. It's earned. Every sketch, every idea, every late night at the kitchen table with pencils and paper, that was real. And just because it didn't happen in front of you doesn't make it less important." Jenna blinked, surprised. Mom stiffened slightly beside her, as if preparing to step in. "I know it's easier for you to pretend none of this matters," I continued, my voice rising, "because then you don't have to admit you overlooked her. Just like you overlook anyone who doesn't fit into your neat little version of acceptable. But that's done now." I turned to Era, whose eyes had started to shine, not with hurt this time, but something stronger. Relief. Recognition. I faced the yard again. "You all laughed when she wore something different. You rolled your eyes when she tried to help. You let her be your joke." The silence was thick now. Every smile vanished. "She doesn't owe any of you anything," I said. "And neither do I." I reached for Era's hand. She took it instantly, gripping it like it was an anchor. "We're leaving." I didn't wait for replies. I didn't want apologies laced with sarcasm or silence dressed up as dignity. I just wanted the distance. We walked past the folding chairs and cheap decorations, past the plates of half-eaten food and half-meant affection. Amelia followed quietly, offering a soft nod as she opened the SUV door. As Era climbed in beside me, she looked down at the envelope again. Then she looked up at me. "You really meant all of that?" I smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Every word." Era slipped her small bag over her shoulder, tucking the envelope carefully inside. She glanced once at the chair she'd been sitting in, then turned away from it without hesitation.
Her chin was a little higher now.
Her steps a little steadier. We made it as far as the front gate before the voices started. "Callie, wait," Mom called, stepping off the porch with her drink still in hand. "You're really going to leave like this?" "Over a misunderstanding." Jenna followed close behind, her expression caught somewhere between forced concern and bruised pride. "It's just a barbecue. No one meant anything. Don't be so dramatic." I stopped. I turned slowly, meeting their eyes one at a time. "You all want to pretend nothing happened. That we imagined the looks, the comments, the laughter. But we didn't. Era didn't. She felt every bit of it, and so did I." Rick stood near the grill, arms crossed, eyes lowered. A few cousins lingered by the folding table, awkward and quiet, unsure whether to speak or disappear. "I brought her here, hoping she could be part of this family," I said. "But I won't ask her to shrink herself just to fit in. I won't let her light be treated like a joke. Not anymore." Mom opened her mouth, but I raised a hand before she could say another word.
"You don't have to understand.
You don't even have to agree. But I won't stand here and let you make her feel small so you can feel comfortable. I'm choosing her. Her dignity, her joy, her future. That's what matters to me now." Era stood beside the SUV, the door already open, her eyes watching me quietly. She didn't look nervous anymore. She looked ready. I gave the backyard one last glance. The lawn was the same, the chairs still scattered, the drinks half finished, but everything felt different now. Like a curtain had been pulled back. Like I was finally seeing it all clearly. "Goodbye," I said. Not bitter, just final. Then I turned and walked to the car. Era climbed in, settled into the seat, and didn't look back once. Amelia started the engine. The black SUV pulled away slowly, the sound of gravel under tires soft and steady. In the rearview mirror, the figures of my family grew smaller and smaller, standing silently on the porch. And just like that, we were gone. The photo came through just after sunset, as I was cleaning up the quiet mess of an empty evening. My phone buzzed once, and there she was, Era, standing beneath soft golden lights at a long dinner table, her yellow dress traded for something sleek and new, her hair pulled back with small jeweled clips I didn't recognize. She was glowing, not smiling for approval, not posing for someone else, just shining from somewhere deep within herself. The kind of glow that comes when you finally feel seen. My throat tightened. A few minutes later, the phone rang. "Hi, Mom," she said, breathless bright.
"Hi, sweetheart.
"You okay?" She laughed. "Better than okay. I just met everyone at my table. There's this girl from Boston who's into costume design, and a guy who already worked on a real music video set. And my mentor's name is Noor. She designs streetwear. She picked me after looking at my sketchbook." I sank onto the couch, smiling so wide it hurt. "She said I have good instinct," Era went on, "and that I draw shoes like someone who's actually worn uncomfortable ones." I laughed softly. "Well, you've certainly earned that wisdom." There was a pause. Then, quieter, she said, "Thanks for making me go. For saying what you did." I swallowed hard. "I almost didn't, Era. I almost sat there and let them decide what you were allowed to be. But you didn't." "No," I whispered. "I didn't." And in that moment, I felt it again, that wave that used to rise when I was quiet for too long. But this time, it wasn't regret. It was relief. I had stood up. I had chosen her. And now, she was out in the world, becoming something she had always been meant to be. We talked until the call cut out, her voice bubbling over with details, fabric rooms, studio lights, new pencils. When I finally put the phone down, the house was still again. But not empty. I looked at the photo one more time. The girl in it wasn't a guest anymore, or an afterthought. She wasn't someone anyone would mistake for background. She was exactly where she belonged. And so was I. The days unfolded in a stream of photos, messages, and breathless phone calls. Every morning, I woke to snapshots of sketchbooks filled with bold lines and daring colors. There were pictures of Era in workrooms surrounded by fabrics, her sleeves rolled up, eyes full of focus. Her hands, once hesitant, now moved with certainty, cutting, pinning, drawing. Every image told me the same thing. She was coming into herself. Her voice on the phone grew more assured, her words more precise. She told me about her mentor, Noor, who challenged her to take risks, to stop asking for permission before choosing a color or a shape. There were guest speakers from Paris, design critiques that ran late into the night, and collaborations with students who'd grown up with far more, but never questioned why Era belonged among them. No one there told her to dim her light. They asked her to turn it up. Then came the message that made my breath catch. Final showcase next week. I'm designing something just for it. I want you to be there. And so I went. The event was held in a high-ceiling studio, the walls covered with boards of pinned sketches, thread samples, and photos of the students in action. Rows of chairs faced a white runway lined with lights. I found my seat, hands shaking slightly as I held the program. Her name was there, Era Lennox. Final look, the bloom. The lights dimmed. Music rose. One by one, the student designs took the stage, each unique, each filled with raw, youthful ambition. Then came hers. The model stepped out in a piece that looked like it had grown from sunlight itself, a structured yellow coat layered with petal-like panels, each one stitched with bold, hand-drawn florals. It was playful, powerful, impossible to ignore. The crowd gasped, and then they clapped, loud and long. I stood frozen, watching the creation move down the runway, and then Era appeared at the end, walking beside her model, grinning like she couldn't hold the joy in her chest another second. She scanned the crowd and found me. Her eyes lit up, and she gave a small wave, barely able to keep her composure. I waved back, unable to speak. She had done it. Not just the clothes, not just the showcase, she had built herself, thread by thread, into something whole. Something strong. Something beautiful. And all I could think was how close I had come to letting her light be put out before it ever had the chance to shine. Months passed, and the world around us shifted in quiet, steady ways. We no longer heard from most of the family. No more texts about Sunday dinners or birthday parties. No more passive invitations we were meant to decline. The silence wasn't loud, it was comfortable. Like finally closing a door that had been open too long, letting the cold in. Occasionally, Jenna would post something online. A filtered photo of her garden, captioned with lines like, "So proud of our creative girl, chasing big dreams." No names mentioned, just vague enough to claim credit without consequence. My mother followed suit with blurry screenshots of the showcase article, tagging news outlets and writing, always knew she had it in her. Neither had called. At first, I felt the pull, that reflex to correct them, to defend the truth. But it faded. They weren't part of our story anymore. Not really. Not where it mattered. Era had found her rhythm. She was no longer the quiet girl tucked at the edge of family gatherings. She walked through the world like she belonged in it. Her mornings were filled with sketching, workshops, and group chats with students from around the country. She'd been accepted into an advanced design program at a specialized school, something she applied for all on her own. I found the acceptance letter folded neatly on her desk one morning, as if it didn't need to be shown off to matter. Her room was a canvas now. Fabric swatches pinned to corkboards, pencils and cups, notebooks stacked high beside her bed. The yellow dress hung near the window, no longer worn, but preserved like a piece of her beginning. A reminder of who she had always been. Some nights, I'd catch her humming while she worked, a quiet melody only she seemed to know. I'd stand in the hallway and listen, thinking how far we'd come. How close I had come to letting other people define what she was allowed to be. How lucky I was to have stepped away when I did. She was never small. Not for a second. She just needed space. Space to speak, to create, to be bold without apology. The right people, the right places, the right kind of light. And once she had that, she didn't just grow. She bloomed.